Hello, my name is Pepe Lam. In this video, I will be going over some restore features within IBM Storage Protect for Cloud Azure. This video will focus on restoring Azure Virtual Machines that are backed up using the Virtual Machine backup scopes in Storage Protect for Cloud Azure. Before I go through the steps to restore Azure VMs, I want to add a note that the user interface in this video still has the old name of Spectrum Protect Plus Online Services. We are working on updating the UI to the new name of Storage Protect for Cloud. From the Storage Protect for Cloud Azure homepage, click on Restore on the left-hand side. Then select Azure Virtual Machine. This will bring you to the calendar view of the wizard. Azure Virtual Machine backups are unique in that they can be run multiple times a day. They can be run every 6 hours. I'm going to click on one of these backups to see the details of the backup. In this backup, you'll see the virtual machine that was included. This screen also includes filters if you have a lot of virtual machines in your backup, making it easier to locate any specific virtual machines. There's also a search bar if you want to search by VM name. If you want to restore the entire VM, all you have to do is click the Restore button. The next screen brings up the Restore options. This option specifies where you want to restore the virtual machine. By default, it'll restore back to the original location. There's also a description section if you want to add details to your VM restore job. If you want to restore the VM back to its original location, just click the Next button. There will also be a pop-up giving a warning of what happens when restoring back to the original location. If the VM is live, it'll be overwritten. To do that, it'll have to actually stop the VM. If anyone is accessing that VM, it'll cause a disruption of service. Once you hit OK, it'll bring you to the review screen. This screen will allow you to review all the different settings, including region, resource group, and network. If you're satisfied with these settings, you can click Restore. Restoring back to the original location with original settings is pretty simple. It just takes 2 steps to complete. Now, if you want to restore the data to a new location, it's also a simple process, but just involves additional steps. So from here, I'm going to select Restore Data to New Location, hit the Next button, and then first, you're going to have to pick your Azure subscription. If you have multiple subscriptions, you'll just have to pick the one that you want to restore to. Then you have to pick the correct region to restore your data to. You can just restore back to the original subscription and region, but you will have to give the VM a new name. Storage Protect for Cloud Azure will not allow you to restore back to the original subscription or region with the original name. This also applies to the disk name. But if you're restoring to a different subscription, different region, you won't have to change the VM name or the disk name. I'm going to click Next to move forward the Restore wizard. This section allows you to change the name of the VM, which I'm going to change because I'm using the same subscription and region. It also allows changing other properties such as the resource group. For the disk type, this property will depend on the original VM. If the original VM is using managed disk, you can only restore as a managed disk, hence you see why the dropdown is grayed out. If the original VM is using unmanaged disk, it can be restored as either unmanaged or managed. The next property to edit is the availability type. The dropdown will determine what is displayed next. Availability zones are provided by Microsoft for some redundancy within the different regions. Availability sets allow your VMs to span across different hardware in the data center. Zones protect you in the event of a complete data center loss. If availability zone is selected, you have the option of picking from one of 3 zones. For availability sets, those have to be created yourself. I don't have any set up at the moment. Next thing to select is the virtual machine size. Now, this list can get quite large, so you have many options to pick from. Once you've selected your VM, you can click Next to move on to the next screen in the wizard. Here is where you can change the name of your disk. It is going to list out the original VM disk name. If you're restoring to a different subscription and/or region, you can keep the name that is provided. If you are restoring to the same subscription and region, you will have to change the name. I'm going to try to hit next without changing the name, and you'll see an error message displayed about the same name in the destination resource group. I'm going to append some text to the disk name and then hit next. This screen shows the different options for the network. You can set the network, the subnet, and the network security group that you want your restored VM to be in. Then you can hit the next button and go to the screen to review all the options that you've selected. Once you're satisfied with all the options, you can click the Restore button. After hitting the Restore button, you can then go to the Job Monitor to view the status of your restore job. Besides restoring an entire VM, you can also restore individual disks. From the VM selection screen, you can click on the VM itself. Here you can see the disk that is attached to the VM. You can hit the Restore button, which will take you to the next screen, which shows similar options that you've seen for the VM restore. Here you can restore back to the original location. So once you hit Next, you will see a similar pop-up when restoring the entire VM. Restoring the disk back to original location will first shut down the VM before it overwrites the disk. Once you get to the review screen, you can then hit the Restore button to start the disk restore. Now I'll go back and select Restore to different location to show the extra steps required. So first, I'm going to select Restore the data to the new location, hit the Next button, and from here, you'll see that it's similar to the full VM restore, where you have to select the subscription and the region. Now, the same rule applies to the disk restore like the VM restore. If I'm going to the original subscription and region, the disk name has to be changed. But if restoring to a different subscription and/or region, the disk name can be the same as long as there isn't a disk with the same name. Once I hit Next, it brings me to the next screen where I can change some of the properties of the disk. You can see here some of the different settings for the disk. If I want to rename the disk, I just have to select it and hit the Rename button. Since I'm restoring this disk to the same region and subscription, I have to rename the disk. So I'm going to give it a unique name and hit the Save button. You can also edit the properties such as resource groups and availability zone. You can also set the disk type if the original VM was configured with an unmanaged disk. Now, my source VM was configured as a managed disk, so I can't change this property. You also have the option to attach it to an existing VM. Once I'm satisfied with the disk properties, I can hit the Next button. This screen is where you can review the restore settings before hitting the Restore button. You have seen how easy it is to restore an entire VM and restore an individual disk. Next, I'll show you how you can go even deeper down to the contents of the disk. Now, I'm going to click back into the VM selection screen. As you know, you already can click into the VM to view the disk. And then from this disk selection screen, you can drill down into the contents of the disk. Here, you can view the volumes that are on the disk. You can even drill down another level to the file system. From the volume level down and lower to the file system, you'll notice that there's an option to export. Clicking the Export button will create an export job that can be viewed in the Job Monitor. Depending on the size of your volumes, it may take some time to complete the export. Once the export job is finished, you can download the file as an encrypted zip. Clicking on the volume allows you to view the file system. Now, since this disk is my OS disk, you'll see all the operating system folders, and I can drill down into each individual folder. I can keep clicking through the folder to locate the content that I want to export. Once I find the folder I want to export, I can just select it and hit the Export button. Once the job completes, I can download the zip file to access the content. The export function is only available if the backup scope is configured to generate the index. In this video, I've covered how to restore an entire VM in place or out of place, showed how to restore VM disk in place or out of place, and within the VM, look for specific folders in the file system and export them to an encrypted zip file. Thank you for watching this video on how to restore Azure Virtual Machines in IBM Storage Protect for Cloud Azure.